A pleasant afternoon, everyone. I am Louis S. Rigoton from BSE History 1-3, and I will discuss the evolution of taxation in the Philippines during the pre-colonial period up to the Spanish period. Shall we start? What is taxation? The power of taxation is one of the three fundamental powers of the state. It rests us upon necessity, the significance of which stem from the recognition that since the government has been established to promote and to protect the welfare of the people, it is necessary that the government should be provided with the means to carry out its existence. Through the power of taxation, government has the authority to impose burdens and charges upon persons, property, and property rights. The people, as a good citizen, have the responsibility to contribute a fair share to the cost of government. Certainly, the payment of tax is a burden to all those who have the duty to pay because of their income and wealth. Centuries before the Spaniards came to the Philippines, the early Filipinos lived in a separate and independent village and states called barangay. Each barangay had its own government headed by a ruler called Datu and Raha. Each barangay was consisted of 30 to 100 families. Some barangays were big, such as Cebu, Mactan, and Vigan, and Manila. Each of these barangays had a population of more than 2,000. It's like any other states where there is a social stratification, pre-Spanish Filipinos were also divided into social classes. These were the nobles. The nobles, composed of rulers and their families, occupied the highest class. They were usually addressed as Gat, Lakan, Raha, or Datu. Next to them were the middle class, or called freemen. Freemen were the working class. Last, the slaves. The slaves were classified into two. These were aliping na mamahay and aliping sa gigilid. The aliping na mamahay were not full-fledged slaves. They had their own respective families and their own houses. They were required to serve their master during the planting and harvesting period. The sagigilid were the real slave. They were homeless, forbidden to form their own families, required to stay with their master's dwelling, may be used as a payment of debt. During this period, natives started paying taxes but only freemen were required. The tax collected was called buwis or handog. And now, let's proceed to the taxation during the Spanish period in 1521 to 1898. The practice of tax collection was in accordance with the first Filipino-Spanish treaty signed between Miguel Lopez de Legazpi and King Tupas of Cebu on June 4, 1565. This was intended to support the construction of the government offices, build roads, bridges, buildings, ports, markets, schools, and to finance the operation of the churches. Under Spanish occupation, common taxes collected include tributes, cedula, sanctarium, donativo de Zamboanga, venta, falla, and comienda, excise tax on certain products, industrial taxes, royalties on forest products, documentary stamp tax, and postal tax. These taxes were paid either in cash or in kind, in full or installment basis. Most taxpayers preferred to pay in cash. Taxes were both imposed to both natives and citizens of another country on both occupation and businesses. Let's discuss first what is tributes. Tributes were collected to support government and church operations. Those individuals above 16 years old and below 60 were required to pay tribute amounting between 8 and 10 real. According to Blair and Robertson, the fiscal income of the island under Spanish administration amounted to 33,000 pesos in 1584. From this amount, 22,000 pesos came from the tributes collected. In 1598, tribute was increased, and because of the widespread resistance and abuses in its collection, the king abolished it in 1884. Cedula was introduced as its replacement. Second is the cedula, or community tax certificate, serve as an identification card when has to be carried by the person at all times. Sanctorum is another form of tax included in tribute with an amount of 3 reals that is used for church purposes. Donativo de Zamboanga, which is imposed between 1635 up to the middle of the 19th century, is collected to crush the Moro raids, Vinta. On the other hand, amounts of to 1/2 real or 1 ganta rice for every year used in financing coastal patrols around Metro Manila and western coast of Luzon. Falya is a sum of money amounting to 7 pesos in order to be exempted from polo or the forced personal services. Lastly, Diezmos prediales, consisting of 1/10 of the product of one stand, is collected, while goods covered by the excess tax include jewelries, trinkets, burlas, and powder. Third is the encomienda. It refers to a special right best owned upon a person by the king to possess and enjoy all the fruits of a piece of land in a particular place, including the power to impose and collect tax upon inhabitants thereof in recognition to his deeds and contribution for the country, for the king, or for the Spain. There are 2 types of encomienda. One is the royal encomienda, which is owned by the crown like lands in Bagong Bayan, Tondo, Nabotas, Malabon, and etc. Second, the private encomienda, that which is owned by distinguished individuals like lands in Batangas, Bataan, Pampanga, which is managed by the encomenderos like Francisco Rodriguez, Juan Isguera, and Francisco Liwag. And lastly, the polo, or the forced personal services of the natives, existed during the period. Natives involved in polo were called polos or polistas. Their job included wood cutting for naval construction and smelting of weapons and cannons, cleaning the building, watching over the prisoners in the royal houses of the capital of the province, and night rounds of the towns, fixing street gates, cleaning of the rivers, and building ships, including churches. Actually, these personal services likewise constituted a mechanism of compulsory taxation, similar to tribute, insofar as the type of sharing went to the colonial administration from the difference between the amount paid to the polistas and the amount existing in a true labor market. Polo provided the colonial government opportunity to obtain free or semi-free labor because the salary was beyond the standard. Every polista was entitled to some salary which he seldom received. The polistas had a monthly stipend for food consisting of rice at 4 pesos, taken from a small amount contributed annually by all the natives.